and welcome back to my channel. So I know technically we've been in spring, the season, for a little while now, and spring should have sprung at this point, but here in the UK, I don't know about anywhere else in the world, but here in the UK it has been a bit of a dismal couple of months and it has not really felt like spring has sprung. So I haven't really been changing up my plant care that much until very, very recently. It has started to get like proper sunny and nice out, which I am so here for. And so I'm starting to change up my plant care routine a little bit to go into spring, and I thought I would walk you through the sort of changes that I'm doing and do some spring plant chores with y'all today in this video. Before I get into it though, I want to say, if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanty content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanty journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you're not new here, welcome back. Let's get into these spring things. So the first major thing that I have noticed is that my plants are getting drier faster and my moss poles are getting drier faster because the amount of light is increasing and the amount of heat is increasing. The plants are using the water much faster, and so I'm needing to water more often, and so I'm gonna go through and do a bit of watering this morning and get some of my plants back hydrated again, which I feel like they desperately need. I've kind of been putting it off for a little bit, but it is time again, and I know I'm gonna have to up my game going forward in these next few months now that it's like properly getting into the warmer months here. A major thing that I've noticed is that my moss poles are drying out a whole heck of a lot faster. I'm having to water them like every couple of days instead of maybe like once a week, because I think just the air is drier, the plants are using more water in general, and so they dry out so freaking fast. And I feel like that's the hardest part about having plants on moss poles, is to trying to keep them hydrated, because the plants have so many roots in the actual pole. It is really important to keep them hydrated, and it'll help them grow better and size up, which I think is probably the goal if you have your plant on a moss pole, rather than just having it for height purposes. I mean, you could do that, but you probably want to keep it moist regardless. So I'm having to water those a whole lot more often. And even though I'm not watering the plants in here today, I'm having to do the moss poles pretty much every watering day I do, because they are thirsty this time of year. Yeah, I'm also fertilizing at the minute, and if you have stopped fertilizing for the winter, if your plants have stopped growing and you've stopped fertilizing, you want to be starting to do this again once the weather is starting to warm up. Personally, I haven't really stopped fertilizing over the winter. I've kind of created an artificial environment in my home with grow lights and heaters, and it's quite humid, so my plants have been continuing to grow throughout the winter time. And if your plants are doing that too, it's totally okay to keep fertilizing over the course of the whole winter. So I've not stopped, but I have actually started trying this new fertilizer. I mean, it's not a new product, but I've struggled to get my hands on more liquid gold leaf lately, and so I figured why not try and experiment with something new. And this was recommended to me by, I think, Johnny, the bearded plantaholic. I think I heard it from him, but it is Formulex, and I just got it on Amazon, and I mean, we'll see if it's any good. Like I said, I've not tried it for very long. It's very new to me, so I'm not sure, but it says it's a complete balanced nutrient solution ideal for hydroponics and general soil gardening, which that is what I do. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes. If you're interested in trying it as well, I'll put the link in the description. Not sponsored by them, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm trying something new, because why not? So that is fun. Now I am going to be doing a little bit of cleaning and dusting. If you've been here any length of time, you'll know that I very much so dislike dusting my plants. And actually also in October, November last year, I started doing a sulfur treatment on a lot of my plants in order to get rid of flat mites. And knock on wood, I think I have been able to get rid of them so far, but I basically treated every plant in my collection. I don't think all of the plants had flat mites, but it was just easier to treat them all than to go in with a microscope on all of them, which it's fine. But I've had to treat them all, and it's caused them to have these like really unsightly water spots, which like they kind of look like variegation if you like squint your eyes and pretend. So I've had these. Ooh, this one's got good roots in here, and it's wet because I just watered it, so it's dripping. But a lot of my plants, all of my plants, have had these really unsightly water spots for about 6 months now, and I've really not been enjoying looking at it. But I think after 2 rounds of that sulfur treatment, I think my plants are okay at this point. I have noticed a lot of my plants that were suffering before from potential flat mites have started growing again. And later in this video, I'm actually going to look at one of them under a microscope and see if it has actually worked. I think it has, but we can double check with the microscope later in this. And so I think I can finally dust these spots off, and I've started already with a lot of plants. If I've had a plant in a video lately, I have been cleaning them off in advance just because I think it looks much nicer, and it's easier to do it slowly because it is a tedious process to go through and dust every single one of your plants. But it is really, really good to do, especially this time of year. It's good to do all year round, but especially now that it's getting lighter and you want to be maximizing your plant's growth, dusting your plants in general, not just because you've put a treatment on them, is super duper important, because when you wipe away that layer of dust, you're actually allowing the cells of the plant to photosynthesize better because they're able to receive more light. Dust is kind of acting like a sunscreen on the plant, not allowing it to absorb that light, which they need to grow and continue to thrive. So keeping your plants clean and free of dust is super duper important. So let's go through and dust some more of these ones to get them nice and clean again. Yes, I'm so glad these water spots are going to be gone in my collection. It's so nice having pretty plants again. Also, when you're dusting, you want to make sure you're doing both the tops and the bottoms of the leaves. And while you're doing this, you can check for pests, because you don't want to be spreading pests from plant to plant. So it's good to pay attention to the bottoms of the leaves, especially because that's where pests like to hide out. And so you want to stay on top of that as best as possible and treat things as soon as possible. So again, dusting your plants regularly can help prevent pests. And especially now that it's getting warmer and we're more likely to have the windows open in our flat, it is a good chance for the pests to get into our homes. And so you're more likely to see an increase of them during this time. That looks so much better. And also, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this, but I think I'm starting to get some new growth off of this mid-cut that I was sold, which is kind of annoying that I was sold a mid-cut, but it's fine, it happens. So glad that that might start growing again. Or like, I guess for the first time for me, because then maybe it'll actually grow up the moss pole and it might actually like start growing quickly, as I've heard repeated for just cursiva can. Can't really see the water spots on this specific plant because it is already variegated, but they're there and I will be glad that they'll be gone soon enough. Now this one's all nice and clean as well. And those are actually the last two plants in this room outside of my greenhouse cabinet, which I have not tidied off yet, that needed to be cleaned. And so my living room is fully sulfur spot free and looking really nice again, which I'm obsessed with. Also, for my dusting, I was using a damp microfiber cloth, but you can also get like dusting gloves, which are, I feel like they're microfiber gloves, and you just put them on your hands, and it's really easy to clean your plant's leaves this way, especially ones that have smaller leaves. It's quite easy to get into the little gaps with these little fingers on them. So I use these quite frequently. If I weren't using a wet cloth for the like removal of the sulfur spots, this is what I use to dust my plants normally. Similarly to dusting, it's also really important to clean your windows this time of year. It's not something that I would normally think of as a plant chore, but it can make a massive difference in your collection, because if your windows are dirty, again, that's creating a barrier for the light to come into your home and go to your plants. So I'm going to be giving my windows a really good wipe down. Cleo does like to sit in front of them very regularly, looking at birds, looking out the window at people, generally rubbing her face up against the window and sneezing. And so my windows are a little bit grotty. So cleaning them, I think, will actually make a decent difference. I mean, it's not going to be perceptible on camera or like even with my eyes, but I do think it will help my plants going forward this growing season. So let's clean my windows. Can we switch windows? Can you go to this window? Hey baby, come here. Now that it is getting warmer, it's also a really good time to repot your plants. I know some people stop repotting their plants fully over the autumn and winter seasons because it's like they're not quite as easy to repot then. They might not bounce back as quick as they would during the growing season. Personally, I repot whenever I find that my plants need it because similarly to the fertilizer situation, I've created an artificial environment in my home, and so they're not getting that big of a difference. It's not like they're going into a cold place comparatively, and so they don't necessarily need to wait until spring to be repot. I'd rather repot the plant when it needs it, but I am finally deciding to repot these ones. I have two here, which I don't think I have ever repotted. So the first one is my fernleaf cactus, which is growing very well, might I add, but I've never repotted it, and I think I want to give it some nice new soil. And then my Hoya polyneura, this beautiful thing, which I also think I have never actually repotted, and I'm pretty sure both of these are ready. This one you can kind of see the roots coming out of the bottom. This one you can't, but I do think I want to give it some new soil because I think it will help it. So let me start unpotting these so we can start repotting them. Let's do the fern leaf first. And I feel like it will need a slightly bigger pot. I mean, it doesn't look incredibly root bound in there, and the soil isn't terrible. It is fairly, like, what do you call it? It's got lots of drainage. It's got plenty of perlite in there. It's not just coco coir, which can happen when you're buying plants. So I'm not terribly mad at the soil, but it has been a year since I got it, and I think it could benefit from something a little bit chunkier. I'm going to be putting this one into Anthurium and Orchid Mix from Soil Ninja because this is a jungle cactus. It is an epiphytic plant, so it will much prefer something a bit barkier, I think, and maybe a little bit more space. I'm not going to take all of this soil off because I don't need to, but just getting some of it off, I think it could benefit from, just to detangle the roots a little bit, get them aerated again. I think I'm also going to go up a pot size in this one because I feel like it's not quite proportional to the size of the foliage, the root ball. I feel like it looks quite small considering how much foliage this plant has. While I'm doing this, I might also put my other cutting, because I have a cutting of a fernleaf cactus as well. I might put that one, I might join the two together just to make it one plant and continue to not downsize necessarily, because I don't know if that it just does kind of downsizing because I'm taking two plants and putting them together. This is the cutting, which has perfectly fine soil. I think it is already in Anthurium and orchid soil. Dump this one out in here. It's very moist because I literally just watered it as well. I think I can join them in nicely. I think about there. I don't think it's that much of an upgrade in pot size, but I don't think it needed one necessarily. It didn't need a huge upgrade. So this is the Anthurium and orchid soil. It's got like loads of perlite and pumice in it and lots of bark for chunkiness, and I've found that all of my jungle cactus really love this soil. It's what I propagate all of my jungle cactus in. It's what I keep my Hoyas in as well, so that's what I will be using to repot the polyneura in a second. But they really like the balance of this one, and I found it really easy to root them like straight in this stuff. There we go. The only downside of this though is that these pots, you can put these on, and I don't really have any more proper hanging pots at the minute, so maybe that's something I can look into when I'm at the Malvern Houseplant Festival this weekend. But for now, I'm just going to like really awkwardly do this. I mean, I suppose that does work. It doesn't look fantastic, but it works for now as like an interim sort of thing until I can get a better hanging pot for that one. And then got the Polyneura, and this is one that I found hella flat mites on last, what was it? It probably was late summer, early autumn time, and since then I have obviously treated it with the sulfur fungicide. Ooh, it is so rooted in there as well. So yeah, it'll be good to get this one. Maybe I have repotted this one, but it was like right when I got it, and so I think it probably would like a bit of a refresh anyways. But I was saying, this is the one I found flat mites on, so I'm actually gonna go through after repotting this one and we can look together to see if it has any more flat mites. I think that will be really good, and we can just double check that the sulfur fungicide has done its job. I have washed this one off already because I was doing it. I think I watered and I washed it off in the shower because I water all of these hanging plants in the shower because it's way easier because they don't have cash pots, so otherwise they would just drip all over my carpet. And so I washed it off in the shower, and so it is in theory all clean now, but that was a few weeks ago, and it'd be good to have a proper look at it once it's in its new pot. So let me quickly repot this one and we can look at it under the microscope. Getting soil literally all over myself on the floor, but it's fine. All over. That'll do, and I wonder if this, I can do the same again for now until I can get a new hanging pot for it. Ta-da! Right, let's clean this up and pull out my microscope and we can have a look at these leaves to see if there's any more flat mites in them. Here is the microscope that I use. I just got it off of Amazon. I do highly recommend getting yourself one of these if you want to be able to look at plants. At the very least, you should get some sort of hand lens, but I like this because you can look like much more in depth at the pests you have on your plants, and it'll probably help you identify them better because you'll know what they look like up close. So from here, I can just like put this up to my plants and I can record it on my phone and see what is there and if there is any sort of pests. So I'm not going to look at literally every single leaf of this plant because that would be slightly outrageous and a whole lot of work, but I will look at the like a good chunk of them to see if I see anything. I also haven't seen any with my naked eye, which on this plant I was able to see. I think I showed it in the video where I found them. I was able to see those with my naked eye, and so the fact that I'm not seeing any is a very, very good sign. So far it's looking pretty good. I'm not seeing anything in their sort of local or like normal hideouts. That's my finger that you can see moving. Oh, and the leaf I just broke off. Oops. The fact that I'm not seeing any is really, really good news to me, because genuinely last time it was riddled with flat mites, and so I was seeing them all over the place. Whereas here I am not, so I'm taking that as a good sign. I feel really, really good about this. I thought maybe that could be one, but no, these aren't, these are just like spots of dust or something. Not flat mites. Heck yeah. I think I'm flat mite free, guys, which means the freaking sulfur worked. Okay, cool. Also, this means I can make a video about flat mites and how I have dealt with them in my collection very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that if that is something that you are interested in seeing. So yeah, very, very pleased with these. I'm going to water them and put them back up in their spots, but like once they've drained out in a couple of hours, because they still don't have like cash pods. They will just drip on my carpet, and I don't want that. The last thing that I want to talk about in this video is moving your plants around. I personally move my plants around all the time just to make sure that they are getting enough light in the right space, size-wise, etc. But that is something that you want to think about coming into the warmer months, because you're going to be getting a lot more hours of light and a lot more like hot sunlight, which can end up scorching your plants by being like out too long, or even if your plants are up against and touching a window, that can burn the leaves as well. So it might be worth thinking about plants that are in the windows and whether or not they are touching them or not, figuring out whether or not they will be able to tolerate the increased levels of light throughout the day, or if you might need to pull them back a little bit from the window, or you might be putting stuff closer to the windows because the sun might be higher in the sky and so you're not getting as many hours of direct sun. It's just something to think about during this time and be aware of going forward. You also might be able to put your plants outside. Unfortunately, I can't do that. I don't have any outside space myself, but if you have a balcony or a backyard or a garden or something, you might be able to be putting your plants outside. If you do this though, be very, very careful, because direct sun inside does not correlate to direct sun outside, and you could scorch your plants quite heavily if you put something straight out into the direct hot spring and summer sun. You will need to slowly acclimate them, so I highly suggest putting them in the shade outside. That will more than likely correlate to direct sunlight indoors in the sort of amount of light it's getting. So try and put things in the shade, maybe on the north side of a building, or maybe getting only like morning sun or something like that that's not as hot and for not very many hours. Eventually you might be able to put them into a place that has more direct sun, but you might want to take your time doing that and don't do it too quickly right off the bat. Hey, down from there, baby. So yeah, that's just something else to think about. But yeah, that is it for me today, doing some spring plant preparation and resetting a little bit, getting my plants ready for this nice warm weather coming up. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplanty things you'd like me to talk about in the future. If there's any other tips you have for going into spring, leave them in the comments for other people to find, and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day and are hopefully enjoying some sunshine like I am, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to keep growing. Bye!